Hello, good afternoon again. This is Joseph Patterson of the UIC. Um, uh, I'm supposed to be talking to you in about 2 minutes on the subject of political accountability and impeachment. Thank you very much, there. And impeachment. So we're waiting for Styles FM, I think they're called, to come on the line, and then we'll have a lovely chat. But we can kick things off. Please feel free to start adding your questions. Maybe you have questions on impeachment, questions on recall, how to recall a politician, how to recall your MP, how to recall the prime minister, how to recall the opposition leader, or how to impeach them. There's an impeachment act which has actually not been passed. I think they drafted the act back in 2011 or 12, and that has been sitting on the shelf for some time now, and they haven't actually passed the act into law. And so now, when we might want to actually use the law, we might actually not have it available at the moment to use. But bigger than that, I guess one of the big questions we might want to ask ourselves is uh, what is the purpose of impeachment? What is the purpose of recall? How can we ensure that if we put up impeachment process in place, it is not used as a form of witch hunting, going after a politician, like the opposition or the government, going after a politician to remove them from office simply because they want to do so. Anyways, let me welcome all of you who are on. I see Sidani Bin Williams. Welcome, my dear. Good to have you on. Thank you for your continued support. I see another person saying, hello, Mr. Patterson, but I can't see that person's name. But whoever you are, thank you so much for coming on and for participating. Any questions you have at all on the subject of political accountability? How do we hold our politicians accountable? How do we ensure that when we elect an MP, when we elect a government, that government carries out the mandate that we elected them on? For example, how many of us voted for the government to pursue NIDS? Not many of us. Oh, welcome, Sister Janet. Good to have you on. How many of us voted for the NIDS program? How many of us voted in the last election for the government to implement the draconian measures that they have to take away our freedoms, our rights and freedoms under this COVID situation? So we need to ask ourselves the question, how do we hold the politicians accountable? Do we just give them 5 years? We vote them in for 5 years and then we suffer whatever they do to us? So today I want to talk to you about this issue of impeachment. We're going to have the people from Styles FM on. They're going to join us in about 20 minutes. The program has started over there, but they're not with us yet because they're going to be talking to some other person. So they'll join us in about 20 minutes or so. But in the meantime, there are a few things we can look on. One of them is to look on the legislation that was not passed and ask yourself the question, why? Why is it that they have a very lengthy piece of legislation that they have taken taxpayers' time and money to put together, but have deliberately chosen not to enact that legislation? Successive governments, you're talking about from 2011. So that's coming from the then JLP administration, then to the PNP administration, then to the JLP administration again. And they have both chosen not to effect impeachment laws. So you have to ask yourself the question, how serious are these politicians about accountability? if they have not taken the time. They're our lawmakers, they are the highest court in the land, if you will. They are there to make laws that are to improve the system of governance and the effectiveness of governance in our country. And they have chosen to not put in place what they thought is supposed to be important, which is impeachment. They tell us it's important, and they haven't put that in place. I have some different ideas on the matter, but since they think putting forward the kind of legislation that they have drafted, then why haven't they implemented that legislation from 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and now we're in 21? It reminds me of when the prime minister make us various promises and what he's going to do in his first 100 days, and we're now thousands of days since then. Number two, the legislation that was proposed appears to be a patchwork of just putting together a few things here and there, but not a carefully thought out legislation that would ensure to provide voters with the justice that we deserve if our politicians fail us. We believe at the end of the day that much of this legislation, when it's enacted, will prove unenforceable because of the very constitution that we have. You've heard me talk about this a number of times, that the constitution we have is a flawed constitution. Probably not flawed, I wouldn't say flawed. It is a constitution that is not designed to protect the interest of the Jamaican people. It is designed to protect the interest of the crown, the interest of our former slave masters. It is designed to protect our politicians from us. It is designed to foster and facilitate corruption. It is not designed to protect us. For example, in the George Wright situation, where this lady was beaten up, if she is not prepared to come forward and testify, even though we have evidence of a crime being committed, or at least an alleged crime, a potential crime, the laws that we have in place do not equip the police and the justice system to pursue prosecution unless the female in question would feel confident enough and unintimidated enough to come forward and press charges against her beater, her prosecutor, or persecutor, I should say. And that is the kind of laws that we've kept on the books in Jamaica all these years. Laws that are not designed to protect us, but to protect, for example, women beaters. Jamaica has had a long history of men who beat up their women or beat up women, you know. And the laws by now should have been adjusted to protect our women. But unfortunately, for 77 years, the two parties that we have depended on to lead us, to protect us, to provide for us, the two parties that we have trusted with our government, they have chosen not to put in place laws to protect our women from men beaters. That's what I'm talking about, a flawed constitution. And there's more to it. The current constitution puts an excessive amount of powers in the hands of the prime minister and the prime minister's office, as opposed to creating a more balanced parliament, a more balanced government that would see proper checks and balances. I'll give you just one example, just one very simple example. Why is it that we don't have elected senators? Instead, what we have are senators who are appointed by the leaders of the two political parties. Now, what kind of way is that to constitute a very important body that is going to help to assess the laws that come from the lower house? The Senate is supposed to review whatever laws that come from the lower house, and they are then to be in a position to vet it and give their final assent to it. But the senators do not represent the people of Jamaica. The senators represent the leaders of the majority parties. So the governing party's leader appoints 13 senators, and the opposition leader appoints 8 senators. So no other party have anything to do with this, nor did the people have anything to do with this. And please bear in mind, the leader, the prime minister, is not even elected by the people of Jamaica. The prime minister is whosoever is the leader of the winning party. So these kind of poor system designs needs to be fixed. And that's what the UIC wants to do. Now, this law that they're bringing in, or which they thought about bringing in and refused to adopt, is very convoluted. They write these laws in the language of lawyers. They don't write these laws for the ordinary Jamaicans to read it. If you take up that document and start to read it, you have to remember which section and subsection to go to, and you have to have more of a legal mind to go through it. We need to stop this. We need to have laws that are written for the common people to understand. But instead, they create convoluted laws with loopholes, which will allow and give the political leadership and the politicians themselves opportunities to circumvent the very laws that they tell us they have designed to protect our interest. So this is important. These are really important things. But let me pause again and say hello to all of you who are on. I think Michael Marias is saying the senators work for their parties, not the Jamaican people. Very much so. And good afternoon to you as well. Another person said, "So true, sir. The Jamaican leadership is not representing the people." Now, this is serious because what they have done, they have developed a constitution which is not about the people of Jamaica. If you read it, the very first few lines of the constitution tells you that it's about the Queen of England and her heirs. It's about Her Majesty being sovereign. Now, the UIC don't believe in any sovereignty except the sovereignty of the people of Jamaica. So we're going to do away with all of that foolishness. And we're going to make sure that you, the citizen of Jamaica, you are sovereign. And so the laws must be designed to protect your individual sovereignty and our collective sovereignty as a nation of people. But still, talking about this law that they have in place, the law that they're proposing to bring on in terms of impeachment, it has an unnecessary structure of committees and tribunals, which, if we're not careful, these structures could be used to create a witch hunt. So let's say we elect a politician who truly wants to defend the interest of the people. They could twist these laws to impeach such a person on a technicality, to remove them from office. And so we have to be very careful about that. We have to make sure that the laws that come into effect are laws that are objective. There must not be too many of them. They should not be too complicated. They should be very straightforward, because the truth is, a person who is hired into a position has either done something of a criminal offense, or they did something which is not a criminal offense, but is a serious lapse in judgment, which means they might not be fit for office. So their conduct may be poor. Now, all of this can be codified in law. You can codify, what their job description is, and therefore see if they've breached the contract of their jobs. And you can codify what constitutes good and bad behavior. And you should be able to point to these very distinctly and not have the kind of charade that you suffered during the Trump impeachment trials, which amounted to nothing, and the Clinton impeachment trials, which amounted to nothing, and the Nixon impeachment trial, potential trial that amounted to nothing. So we have all of these historical evidences that we can look at to say whether or not we want to support these ideas. Now, we also noticed in the draft legislation that we, the people, were left out. But that is not new to you. It's not the first time that they've drafted legislations where we, the people, are left out. So if you read the proposed impeachment act, you'll notice that there is no place for the electors, for the citizens. It's all about the politicians getting together and deciding what to do about each other. But there's no role in that process for the electors. And so effectively, the public can only generally raise their hands, ask for an impeachment, demand an impeachment, maybe riot or demonstrate, but it cannot actually legally initiate the process of impeachment. And that, my friends, is wrong. But it shows something mentally problematic with our politicians. They do not see any value in including the citizens in this process of impeachment. They think that they're superior to us, and that's a problem. Where our politicians see themselves as superior. That's why they call themselves most honorable and honorable. The mayors that go his worship or her worship. Oh my gosh, come on, seriously. Why why do we want to elevate other human beings above other human beings? We're all human beings. No elevation necessary here. The prime minister is simply a chief executive officer. That's what he should be. We've hired him to be in a proper election. The ones we've had are fraudulent elections. I did not hire this fella that we call prime minister. We have a fraudulent process. But let's say we had a good, true democratic election process. Then the prime minister would be the CEO, right? So we hire a CEO. What does that make him? Nothing. He's just responsible for the executive functions of our government. You and I have decided that we're not going to take that job up. So we hire somebody to take that job. We hire an MP to say, listen, I'm going to be busy working on my farm or working in my carpenter shop or working on my plumbing or working on my HVAC or my nursing job or my accounting job. I'm going to be busy. And so I'm voting for you to go and represent me in parliament. Go pay attention. Go and make sure that those guys are not messing with my life, that my life, my liberty, my property are protected. And the tax dollars I'm paying, they're using it properly to make sure we have, good roads, good police, good street lights, a good justice system. Go take care of that for me. Just an employee, okay? The prime minister, the members of parliament, the senators, the mayors, the councillors, they're all just employees. They're employees of the people. They are not our gods. And so we have to make sure we take away from them any kind of power or any kind of designation, any kind of naming conventions that suggest that they are superior to any one of us. And so when you elect a UIC government, you can prepare yourself for that. We're going to bring the politicians down to earth so that they are no longer seen as our gods, but rather our employees. So, as I said, they have left the people out of the law. The UIC will bring the people back into the law. Now, the way they worded the removal of the prime minister and the opposition leader in their proposed impeachment act was very vague. It doesn't state clearly how the prime minister and the opposition leader could be impeached. But worse than that, there's some amount of conflict of interest in the whole process. Some serious conflict of interest. Um, and oh, by the way, let me do a shout out to all of my friends on Clubhouse. Thank you so much for tuning in, and a big shout out to all our friends on Facebook, and to our friends on YouTube and Twitter. Thank you for tuning in. Again, my name is Joseph Patterson, president of the UIC, and I'm so happy to be able to be talking to you today about the accountability of our political leaders, of our politicians, and possibly the enactment of an impeachment law. I see someone writing here saying, so why can't the people of Jamaica see this yet? Good question. It is available. I think we just have somebody posted a link there, maybe, on it, but it is available. But I'm just talking about its impact, how it's going to impact us, and how it should or shouldn't work, you know. So, speaking more on the topic of the prime minister and the opposition leader, um, if you look at the impeachment act that is being proposed, the 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 impeachment, the so-called impeachment committee, will make it next to impossible to impeach the prime minister by virtue of the partisan appointment. So, first of all, the chairman of that committee will be the president of the Senate. Of course, the president of the Senate is, you know, the appointment of the majority political party. So you already have somebody that is on the side of the prime minister who would be chairing the impeachment committee. Then the prime minister appoints two senators. So remember, he has already appointed the 13 senators. And now, for the purpose of this committee, he will again have this grand power of appointing two senators to sit on the committee. So that's the chair, of the Senate, which is again a partner of the prime minister, and then two senators, which are appointed by the prime minister. That's three, and then the prime minister also gets to appoint one member from the House of Representatives. That's four. Okay? So, of the seven committee members, the prime minister will have the clear majority already. Just think how difficult that is going to be in terms of that committee moving to impeach the prime minister. Of course, it will have no problem impeaching the opposition leader, if that is the case. But clearly, the prime minister is somewhat protected by this design. Um, there's also no process in place for now. You know what? I just realized I haven't gotten the call yet that I'm supposed to get from these people, and why is that not happening? Let me see. Just a second. Let me just check here and see what is happening. Why I'm not hearing from them. Uh, yeah, I'm not seeing a call yet from Styles FM. So yeah, well, let's continue. If they don't pick up, if they don't call me on time, then we have a grand conversation, eh? So as I was saying, the prime minister has a clear advantage. So does any member of his party would have a clear advantage in this setup that we're looking at. So yes, Michael, this is a family business. As you can see, the two parties have worked really very hard. One second here, really very hard. The sun is coming in. Oh, not too great. They've worked really. Let me pull this up. Is this? Oh, that's really too bright now. So let me put this back down. Sorry. All right, so we have to survive this way. I'm getting this light in my face from outside. But yeah, so as you can see, yes, Jamaica's politics is a family affair. You have the prime minister, you have his wife, you have MP, you have his wife, you have father, you have his son and daughter. Because you see, politics is big business in Jamaica. This is where, if you live in Jamaica and you want to become rich, the best way, right? The most effective way to become wealthy in Jamaica is to get into politics. That's the most effective way. And don't get me wrong, you have to be careful when I say get into politics, because I'm involved in politics, and a number of, all of our members in the UIC. But what I mean is get involved in one of the two traditional parties, because that's where the money is. That's where they get billions of dollars in funding, and that's where it will be a very quick process for you to get into government and get access to resources, get access to taxpayers' money, get access to contracts, and get access to, bigging up your family and so on. So very few Jamaicans will normally say that they're going to join the UIC and run for office, because they understand that this is a sacrifice, right? This is a labor of love. It's not, a quick ticket to access the money and access to power. But many persons who you see on the other side, they know why they're there. That's where they see the opportunity. But I digress. Let me get back to the main topic here, which is this impeachment act. So, as I said before, the prime minister is well protected. But notice in the act, notice in this provision that they have made no allowance for any other political party to participate in the process. Now, this is not an accident. This is not, an oversight. In every process that is designed in our constitution and every institution that is designed in Jamaica, they design it to work on two political parties. It's not designed for a multiplicity of parties. It's not designed for the success of independent candidates. It is designed entirely to protect the continuance of these two parties, which, by the way, are just two sides of the same coin, whichever way you turn it. So one side is called PNP, one side is called JLP, but it is one coin. And they work in tandem to keep the system in place, to keep we the people in place, which is why you have a small group of people who are in control of the assets of Jamaica, who have the larger access to capital and to power, and they keep it that way in the family. Okay? So no provisions have been made in this legislation for the existence of any other political party in the process. The same thing is true of the Electoral Commission of Jamaica. The same thing is true of the electoral laws. They're all designed to preserve and protect the two-party system, and in particularly these two parties to continue. Now, of course, we're going to break that. With your help, the UIC is going to break that. We're going to mash up that system, and we're going to liberate Jamaica from this partisan model, which is designed to divide us and conquer us. We're going to stop that. Okay? So, continuing now to the issue of the impeachment committee, it is so designed that the whole process of impeachment will be done in private. Huh? It will be a private affair. So they'll hear the complaints in private, but they won't allow you to hear what is happening generally. Now, an impeachment should be a very public process. There should be no secrecy when it comes on to impeachment or recall, right? Um, the law also does not indicate how the impeachment or tribunal will take submissions from persons. How do we access this? How do we get in and submit something for consideration? So clearly, once again, our politicians are failing us. In fact, they have stopped short for a number of years to even bring this forward for approval. Why? Because they don't really want a system of accountability in place, right? So we would much rather if we had a jury trial under the control of a judiciary instead of politicians. So I would rather a system where we have an issue has been raised, and you have a jury that is convened, which is drawn from a cross section of the country, not necessarily politicians. They're not excluded, and the judiciary, instead of politicians, should hear the issues and should then be able to give us a verdict on the issues based on the investigation of the laws. Yeah, yeah. Um, for this to happen, though, the UIC way would have to be implemented. We need to have job descriptions. Right now, we have no job descriptions for senators, no job descriptions for MP that is codified in law, and we do not have a code of conduct which is codified in law and accompanied by disciplinary measures codified in law. So, if we're really serious about holding politicians accountable, we need to make sure that we have job descriptions. What is the job description for the prime minister? What is the job description for the opposition leader? What is the job description for the MP, for the senators, for the mayors, for the councillors? What are their job descriptions? And what is the code of conduct under which they are employed, so that should they violate this code, it is very clear and objective? And what are the associated disciplinary actions assigned to the different uh, areas of the code of conduct, right? So, for example, if it's a misdemeanor offense or if it's a major offense, how will it be dealt with? All these things can be codified in law. So it's not guesswork and it's not a witch hunt. It can be clearly articulated, clearly investigated, and clearly prosecuted. The principle of what would be considered misconduct should be codified with examples to prevent the impeachment process from being a mere witch hunt exercise. We, the people of Jamaica, cannot afford a costly, expensive game, political game like we see in the US. We don't want those games here in Jamaica. What we want is a system that is judicially sound and which is only exercised when there is satisfactory grounds, which is assessed by the Supreme Court as being reasonable to be brought forward for both impeachment and recall. There's also another part to this that I want to talk to you about, which is really, really important. And it is something that good evening, Kevin. Good to see you on. All my friends out there, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Clubhouse, thank you for joining. I'm talking about this impeachment act that was never acted upon by the government for some 10 or so years. Now, here's something important that I want you to think about. This is really very critical. We need, as a part of this impeachment act, or also recall, because these are two things, you have impeachment and you have recall. Okay, impeachment, recall, two different things, but important. Impeachment is when you breach the law or the code of conduct. That is what it should be. We are saying that's what the UIC is saying, right? But then you have recall. Now recall is a situation where the citizens or constituents said, we want to remove this person from office because we don't think that they're living up to the reason why we elected them. Now, for you to do that, I believe it's important for you to have the manifestos and platforms of each candidate and their parties be brought into evidence in the recall and impeachment process. This will mean that if you elect somebody and they did not put something in their manifesto or platform, for you to be able to say this is what they were going to do, and then they're going to do that, you can recall them, and that would be evidence that would be submitted to the tribunal. And this tribunal, which is made up of judges and independent jurors drawn from civil society, then they look at this and say, oh yeah, there is merit for this. And then you can have a recall election to say you want to dismiss this person and replace them with somebody else. You have a recall election there. Or you proceed with impeachment to apply some kind of punitive measure against the person for the impeachable offense. So those, offense must also be clear. It must be codified in law. What are impeachable offenses? Okay, which is missing from this act, by the way. So we want to have that. So we want the whole process to be evidence based. All right. So we must have evidence. Okay. Um, I want to thank Nakia for lending us some space on the clubhouse room. Roots and culture. That's what it is called, I think. Eh? Also, we're still waiting for Styles FM to come on. I'm really not sure what's going on. Let me make a call here and see what's going on. Maybe I can get some answers for us. Let me see here. 1 second. I'm sure the program should be finished by now because it's a radio station, but I'm not sure what happened. So I'm dialing right now. Let's hear what you know what they say. But let's continue while we wait for the answer. It takes a while. Sometimes these I don't know what's going on with Flow and Digicel, but the connectivity has been getting from bad to worse. Is it me alone that's facing this? It's really getting hard to make phone calls in Jamaica. But anyways, I again digressed. Um, 1 second, 1 second. Hello. Oh, it's finally ringing. It's finally ringing. So we're gonna find out what happened here. Why they didn't actually call us. I'm used to this though.
Apologies for not being able to take your call at this time. As soon as you can, please call back. On behalf of Legal Chambers, Attorney.
Okay, so I'm getting voicemail. So unfortunately, I don't know what happened there, but they didn't call us at all. But in any event, let's continue our discussion. And I'm willing to take questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in here, and I will be happy to answer them. But here we are. The UIC really thinks it's important that we have an evidence-based approach. Uh-huh. Evidence-based, meaning we don't just have, you know, an emotional situation. So for example, with the George Wright situation, we in the UIC believe George Wright should resign. We know that he has not been proven in a court of law to be guilty. So that's a different story. He has not been proven, and we believe in due process, right? You must have due process. So he should face due process. But we believe that given the evidence that came out into the public sphere and the fact that the police went on record to say that um, you know, it's him that's in the video, and all of us saw what happened. I believe public pressure should be brought on him, and that should have begun with the Prime Minister and his own party. Should immediately um, uh, call for Mr. Wright to step down, given what is seen in the public. And the same should have come from the opposition. And of course, you all know that the UIC immediately called for Mr. Wright to come forward and state clearly, categorically, whether that was him and what the issue was, because he's a public figure. No, he didn't do that. He hid from the law for a little bit, and then they finally caught up with him. And we learned afterward that he had a conversation with the party leadership. And in the process, what did he do? The party leadership said they didn't get an answer as to whether it's him or not, and so on. So all shady. He didn't come out categorically and say it's not me. That's not me. That incident is not me. So I think he should resign. And but the laws that we have in place now does not allow us to force him to resign, but we can put public pressure on him. Unfortunately, there is no impeachment or recall law in place. And that's a problem because our these two parties that we're talking about, they've been in power for 77 years. So we're not talking about a situation where they're not in a position of doing anything. Um, I see a question here from Michibu. Why did you decide to take the challenge on forming this party? Very good question. um, Michibu, it was a tough decision to make because I know the sacrifice and the cost involved in doing so. But I chose to create the UIC and to pursue this path because I'm very concerned about the direction of Jamaica and where we might end up if we continue on the path we're on. I looked at the two parties and I could not bring myself to participate and join either of them. It didn't give me any hope that they would be able to do anything significant or they'll be willing to do anything significant to change course. But thanks for asking. Now, what the UIC wants to do, or what we should do, in my opinion at least, we should have an evidence based process where any citizen, including a politician, may initiate via a petition system a recall or impeachment. This process must be based on the petition receiving enough signatures to say, here is an issue, and here is a significant number of Jamaicans who are willing to sign to say this issue is worthy of impeachment or worthy of recall. This should then go to the Supreme Court, who must then assess and rule on the evidence supported by this petition, whether or not a recall or an impeachment process should go forward. So we take this out of the hands of the politicians because remember, you're asking the politicians now to police themselves. And that's not a wise thing to do. So the UIC wants to separate the process, right? So if the citizens of Jamaica believes that somebody ought to be impeached or recalled, then here's the process. You simply have a formal procedure to prepare a document like we do now. We have it on the government website, a document where you outline what you think is the impeachable or recall offense. And you start a very simple process of securing signatures for the impeachment. This process is facilitated by technology, of course, and is verifiable by audit. Of course, if you get fake signatures, then of course you've just lost the case. But so you have enough signatures. Once that happens, it goes to the Supreme Court immediately for those who are trained in the law to examine the allegation with the assistance, of course, of the resources of the state, assess the validity of the request, and look also at the number of signatures that have been raised by the citizens for it. And once they've assessed all of this, they can reach a ruling. And the ruling would say, it appears that we have grounds for an impeachment or grounds for a recall. And then the impeachment exercise kicks in, where you now call appropriate witnesses, look closely at the evidence in question, and then the said court then rules that the person, yes, should be impeached based on the all the things I said before, right? The job description, the code of conduct, the impeachable offenses, and now the case brought forward by any citizen and the number of signatures. And then now you can say, let's go ahead and have a recall vote to remove this person, or yes, they have violated the code of conduct, they have breached their contract of employment as a political person. And here are the penalties, and they lay that down, but it's very objective and very transparent. And we move on from there. So there you have it. That is, those are my views on the issue, and the UIC continues to want to engage in this kind of dialogue with you. Oh, I'm seeing here that my vice president, one of our three vice presidents, Mr. Devon Thompson, wants to come in on the act. Come on in, Mr. Thompson. How are you doing, sir? I can't hear you.
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for coordinating in the background there for us. Much appreciated.
No problem.
What are your thoughts on the subject?
So I firmly believe that Jamaicans should have the ability to recall any politician that they choose to recall, whether that politician is their MP or whether that politician is the Prime Minister of Jamaica. And the recall process should be such that a group of citizens can come together and engage in the process without worrying about the political bureaucracy that's involved. Jamaican citizens should be able to recall a politician just as how in a private company you might be investigating an employee in order to remove them if they're behaving in ways that are in contrary to the company's values or engaging in any criminal activities. So I do definitely agree that some recall legislation is necessary, as well as legislation for criminal activity. So if a politician is engaged in criminal activity, then and they're charged and then prosecuted, then they should be automatically removed from office. So I'm not saying that once a politician gets charged for an offense, you remove them, because you have to prove this politician's guilt, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree totally. I agree 100%. The one of the things I like to elaborate on, Devon, is the idea of not treating politicians any different from other citizens. Not, I know they're holding what we call high office, but I want to get away from that thinking of high office. They're serving as public employees. So if a politician, it's just like you and I in our jobs, if we are found to have done things that are wrong, misconduct we call it, then we're disciplined by we should be disciplined by our process. So if we stole company property, then you're fired, eh? If you stole company property, you're fired. If you engage in sexual harassment. We have policies against sexual harassment, and if you're found guilty, then action is taken against you. So I would like to bring us to a stage where we don't see these people as gods and lords. They're just like us. They're one of us, and we've just given them a job to do. My job right now, I am a financial management consultant, and that's one of my jobs, and I am held accountable for that. The prime minister or any of the other guys in parliament, they're hired as public servants, as public employees. Perform your job. And so I'm really concerned that for all these years we don't have job descriptions for these guys. We don't have a codified legal code of conduct that is fully enshrined in the Constitution. That this is unacceptable behavior by in this job that you have taken on. So once we do that, then it's quite simplified. You have a misconduct. Here's the disciplinary actions. You're out. Now, in terms of recall, it has to be based on something, and I think we should have a standard. The standard should be, what was your platform that you were elected on? Huh? So if we elect you that you're going to make us safe so we can sleep with our doors and windows open, that's what you said. You're saying vote for me, and I'm going to move you from poverty to prosperity. I'm going to allow you to sleep with your windows and doors open, and la la la. These are all the stuff. But then now you go off on a campaign to go and implement something from a foreign master. Then right away we should be able to start a petition and say, hold on, this guy is not doing what we elected him for. He's gone off to do something else. And people say, yes, that's true. And then because of our laws, the court system knows that the Supreme Court knows that any citizen can bring forward an argument and say, here is the situation, that the platform said this, and now they're doing this, and that's not what I voted for. And if there's enough weight in that, then the Supreme Court will rule that yes, there's a basis for recall in this, and we can now push this forward and have a vote to remove this person from office by virtue of electing somebody else as well to replace them on a mandate that the people would have voted for. What do you think of that?
Yeah, that's good. And listening to you just now, something just came to my mind. So I'm an engineer by profession. You're an accountant by profession, and then there are doctors by profession. And all of these professions have a
Yes,
professional organization that holds them to duty of care laws. So if
yes,
you're a doctor and you engage in medical negligence, you can go to jail. If you're
yes,
an engineer and you engage in any engineering negligence, maybe you skipped some processes in your design and a building turned over and killed someone, you're going to jail. If
yes,
you're an accountant and you purposely cook the books, you're going to jail. But I find it strange that politicians don't have this same duty of care,
mhm,
even though this is a profession that affects the
yes,
lives of so many Jamaicans, negatively as well as positively, right?
yes.
So it would be a dream come true for the UIC to create those laws that will hold politicians accountable. Because
Devon,
go ahead.
you made a very important point. You were talking about professions. So you
Mhm.
have the legal profession, you have the accounting profession, you have the medical profession. You would think that we would have a political profession, but we don't. What we have are career politicians who are not necessarily qualified or competent to serve as politicians. Meaning, if you look at the role of a politician, his job or her job is to represent the interest of constituents. Now, in Jamaica, we have not defined what that interest is. We've not defined what is the role of government. What is the role of a member of parliament? What is the role of a senator? What is the role of a councillor or a mayor? We have not clearly defined those, and that's where we have a problem. We have not identified what are the qualifications and qualities for you to have in order for you to be elected to represent a people. And so we have a lot of persons who are elected to represent people, but they're not qualified to represent people. You understand? Nor do they understand the role themselves. So they're now at the mercy of those who have control over the machinery. For example, the current system we have, if we, the UIC, have a rich benefactor, suppose Bill Gates or George Soros, or Elon Musk should decide that they want to take an interest in Jamaica, and they decide that they're going to fund the UIC, they could fund us and give us enough money so that we now have enough power in Jamaica to get elected. And then Elon Musk or Bill Gates or George Soros would now own the UIC, and our representatives would be in that seat representing George Soros, even though we are claiming to represent the people of Jamaica, because the Constitution now doesn't protect the people of Jamaica from that. Because the Constitution has not made it very clear what is the limit of government, what is the limits of any MP, what are the clear rules of engagement. And so an MP can vote any way he wants because there's nothing. He has no job description. He has no evidence based requirements that the citizens can hold him accountable for. There's no legal process to challenge him for why did you tell us that you're going to do this, but instead you did that. So the UIC is going to change all of that. One, we're going to make sure George Soros or Bill Gates cannot actually buy the UIC, which is why we're committed to having small donors, individual citizens owning the UIC, small, so no one citizen owns the UIC by virtue of big money. No international government or international company owns the UIC. We are going to be owned by the people of Jamaica by virtue of the way we design the UIC. Now, we also want to change the government of Jamaica. So it is owned by the people of Jamaica and cannot be manipulated by those who have enough money to manipulate emotions and manipulate elections. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's definitely correct. And before I continue, I want to big up everyone that's tuning in from Clubhouse. Taniel, Perry, Saida, Zam, Kia. Thank you very much for tuning in from Clubhouse. The room is called Jamaica Roots and Culture. I want to thank everyone for tuning in from Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. It's really, really great to see you all out here in your numbers, because the United Independence Congress, Jamaica's third officially registered political party, will win the next general election, and you guys will help make this a reality. So back to the original topic at hand, with with us holding politicians accountable. It's important that we realize that the UIC is simply a tool, and it's a tool for us to use as a people. It's not a tool for Joseph. It's not a tool for me. It's not a tool for Mishibu Trail here. We see it's not a tool for any one individual to utilize. It's a tool for all Jamaicans to come together and use to create this clean, safe, and orderly Jamaica that we want. So this is something that we always explain to Jamaicans. The UIC was not built to last. But the system that the UIC wants to install is built to last generations, built to last forever. The reason why I say that the UIC was not built to last is because, as I said, the UIC is a tool. It's a temporary tool that's going to be used to create the Jamaica that we want to see. So that if the worst politician that you could ever think about, um, Mr. Patterson, name the worst politician you can ever think about, the most evilest politician on the planet.
I think you can choose Hitler or Mao of China.
Okay, let's go with Mao. So let's say that Mao, somebody like Mao, decides that he wants to become president. Notice I did not say prime minister of Jamaica. I said president. Let's say that Mao wants to become president of Jamaica under a UIC implemented system where there's no queen, there's no governor general, just the president, three vice presidents. We have our representatives, the Senate, and the House. Let's say that Mao wants to become the president under this condition. Mao would not have the power to negatively affect your life as the existing PM has the power under this existing system. So in the US system, in the Canadian system, in the Jamaican system, the Chinese system, the majority of the systems across the planet, with the exception of the Singapore system, politicians have the ability to negatively affect your life in a way that could send you into poverty and could lead you down the trail of slavery and even death. Under the UIC system, all of that is impossible because the president's power is diluted down into the vice president, down to the Senate, down to the House of Representatives, and down to the people. So it's the people who directly elect their MP, they directly elect their senator, and they directly elect their vice president for each county, and they directly elect the president. And now we're talking about creating a recall process. So if the people of Jamaica are not satisfied with the conduct or with the performance of the president or the vice presidents or their representative, then they can create or they can initiate this recall process as a people, to put this representative in front of the, what do you call it, Joseph, the judiciary committee,
Yes, the tribunal.
the tribunal, put them in front of a tribunal. So the politician has the ability to state his case, right, in front of the people of Jamaica, not in private. Right?
Exactly.
We don't do anything in
Mm.
private anymore in the UIC system. Everything is public because we should not be hiding anything from the people of Jamaica. It's this secrecy that has prevented us from being knowledgeable about what's been going on in our country and even in the world for so many years. I remember, Joseph, that you spoke about Andrew Holness wanting to make government secrets private for how long? For how many more years?
70 years. 70 years.
For 70 years. We would all be dead by then. 70 years he wants to make government issues secret. That's just ridiculous,
Yes.
right?
No, it's serious. And somebody here is writing, I think Sophia Murray. Sophia says, how could this type of governing exist without an update to the Constitution? Very good question, Sophia. That's why the UIC is not going to update the Constitution. We're going to replace it. So the UIC is going to engage Jamaica in having, for the first time in our history, the first time in the history of Jamaica, a constitution that is of the people, for the people, and by the people. What we have now is not a Jamaican constitution. What we have now is a document written for Jamaica by its colonial masters and approved by its Bakra masters and enforced on the Jamaican people. So we're going to replace this constitution with a truly Jamaican one. For example, in the new constitution, where you have the Queen being the Queen of England being the supreme sovereign, that is gone. You, the individual citizen, becomes the supreme sovereign. Every single Jamaican becomes a sovereign entity. And that's very important. No other government in the world has ever made it absolutely clear. They have tried. The US came close to trying in some of its constitutional design. But we are making it very clear that every single individual Jamaican is a sovereign soul. And then we come together as a collective to have a sovereign state. But the sovereign state does not replace the sovereign soul, the sovereign individual. And so your life, your liberty, and your property rights must be protected even from the government. So, as Devon was saying earlier on, no future government will be able to take away any of your personal rights in order to pursue their own objectives.
Hey, Joseph. So I want to say something in regards to Sophia's question. So the Constitution has been updated multiple times. As a matter of fact, our Constitution did not have those fundamental rights and freedoms in them when it was first created. And it's the same with the US and Canada. So they created the Constitution without considering the idea that government might actually infringe on the natural human rights of citizens. But then when they realized that government was inching towards doing that, they decided to create, or in the US, it's called the Bill of Rights. In Canada, it's called the Charter of Rights. And in Jamaica, it's called Fundamental Rights and Freedoms. So they created those after the fact. So you would think that they would enshrine these rights in the Constitution, but they did no such thing. As you can see in the past couple of months, the Prime Minister of Jamaica has been infringing on the rights of Jamaicans at levels that we have never seen before. Right now, the police in Jamaica have the power stop you and arrest you. Like they don't need to warn you. Stop you, arrest you, bring you to jail, bring you in front of a judge for not wearing a mask, for not social distancing. I don't know. You could probably be walking on the road and you just want to get some fresh air. You just take your mask off. All of a sudden, you probably feel somebody grab you on your hand. You're going to jail, right? That's the kind of power that the Jamaican police have right now. And it
Yeah.
goes on to say, goes on to this, that you would think that they would see things happening in society and Constitution or update laws to early 80s. Jamaica engaged in a civil war with the poor killing the poor, both political parties importing firearms into Jamaica, right? And those guns ended up being the scourge of the island. Poor people killing poor people. And we're still having that problem now. You would think that the politicians would say, okay, we need to create a law to to ensure that the trafficking of firearms into Jamaica, the manufacturing of makeshift firearms in Jamaica should be criminal. It should be a criminal offense. But guess what? It is not a criminal offense to import an illegal firearm into Jamaica. And it's not a criminal offense to make a illegal firearm in Jamaica. And you have to ask yourself, why is that? Wouldn't it be common sense for you to make it illegal? No, possession of the firearm is illegal. So, so, so when you hear about all these guns coming into the war, right, and then you're asking yourself, how come nobody never get charged yet? This is why, because they can't charge anybody for importing the gun. They can charge them for possession. This is the moment the police swoop into the war and collect the guns. That is the moment they cannot charge anybody for it. They can only charge you for possession.
So in other words,
yes.
Devon, our politicians made sure that the laws were so designed that it protected them if they were to be a part of the importation of illegal firearms.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. They have protected themselves. But to your earlier point, though, where you talked about the Bill of Rights or the fundamental rights or the Charter of Rights, the reason why these things were added after the fact tells you that the constitutions were never designed to protect the interests of the people. That was not the purpose of the constitution. And that's the situation in Jamaica. The constitution we have is not designed for protecting us as citizens. It is designed to protect the politicians from us. It is designed to protect the interest of the colonial masters. And it has worked. Let's look at the Constitution. It gives tremendous powers to the Prime Minister's office. Tremendous powers. Let's look at them. The Prime Minister is able to appoint 13 of 21 senators. That's the majority. The Prime Minister is able to appoint any MP as a Minister of Government, and he can fire them at will. He can put any MP as a minister and up to 4 senators as a minister, and he can fire them at will. The Prime Minister is also the head of the executive branch of the government. So he controls the executive, he controls the majority of the House of Representatives, and he controls the majority of the Senate. He also gets to influence the appointments on the judiciary, and he appoints or influences the appointments of most, if not all, of the public bodies. So what we have is a system designed at its core to create the possibility of significant corruption by giving too much power in the hands of one element of government. So what the UIC is going to do is dilute that power so that we have a strong Senate, which is independent of the executive, a strong House of Representatives, which is also independent of the executive and independent of the Senate. And what this is going to do is going to ensure that any law which is being passed, any policy which is being put in place, any legislation which is being developed will be properly critiqued and properly vetted before it comes into law. And look what happens with our system. Every senator will be a representative of a parish. So they're going to look out for their parish. In the executive branch, you're going to have 3 vice presidents, 1 for each county. So they're going to look out for their county. And every MP, because they're no longer funded by private money or big money, but are publicly funded, will only have their constituents to look to. And so they're going to focus now on truly representing their constituents. That is going to make Jamaica the most well-run, well-governed, and well-managed country in the world because of the kind of system that we're putting in place.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, it's so if anybody knows about Singapore, for example, I saw a video, a gut wrenching video of a gentleman who was attacked by a shark in Jamaica.
Yeah.
I
Wow.
saw that people threw him in the back of a truck to bring him to the hospital. So I was here thinking, I'm like, if this happened in Singapore, there would be emergency services on site within 5 minutes, because the Singapore health services has a service level agreement with their citizens that they will get to site in no longer than 10 minutes. And they have this mobile unit that beats traffic and
Yeah.
get to the location in 5 minutes, keeps the person alive until the ambulance gets there within that 10-minute period. And once the ambulance gets there, then they can keep the patient alive and bring them to a hospital. So I'm looking at the case in Jamaica, like they put this guy in a pickup truck and they brought him to a hospital. God knows how far the hospital was. He lost how much blood on the way, and he died as a result of our
Yeah.
system not having emergency services, well-run emergency services to save the lives of Jamaicans. And this is why so many Jamaicans leave Jamaicans. It's not necessarily crime, Mr. Patterson. It's
Yes.
the emergency and the healthcare services why so many run leave Jamaica, because they must say, if I got hit by a car today or I was in a car
Mhm.
accident, then ambulance is going to show up 1 hour later. By that time, I'm gone already. And we
Yeah.
need to have good governance. We need to have a system designed to keep people alive, protect our life, protect our liberty, and protect our property. The police should be there within 10 minutes. The ambulance, the fire truck, they should all be there within 10 minutes, and they should all
Devon,
be fully equipped.
they're going to drop in a pothole on the way.
And the road, and the
So,
road.
yeah,
Oh
you
God.
know, so the ambulance is trying to get to us and it's going to drop into a big
Yeah.
pothole, or the ambulance is going to crash. It's going to swerve out of a pothole, trying to miss a pothole because it's a deep thing, and it's going to hit into. So the ambulance is on its way to save a dying citizen, and the
Mhm.
ambulance is going to crash before they get to the citizen. The road might be too narrow. The bridge is broken away. All kind of things. Now, all of this, Devon, comes from bad governance. But I see Michibu making some really good comments here. She says here, oh, hold on a second, 1 second. Hello, good afternoon. Yes. Well, I've been here. I didn't get a call. This is the first time it's ringing. Yes. Wow. I'm so sorry. I mean, I'm here, the whole world is watching because we're live, on all of the platforms waiting for your call. And yeah, but yes, no problem. Yes. Well, I have you. I am now. I have people online here. So, what do you want us to follow up and see if we can have another arrangement? Yes, man. We'll talk later. Yes, man. Sure, no problem. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye. Yeah. So that was Styles FM. They've been trying to reach me, but as you know, I've been sitting right here. This is the first call. Unfortunately, sometimes Digicel and Flow doesn't work the way they should go. Huh?
So excuse me, Mr. Patterson.
Yes. Yes.
I have a question from a clubhouse user. Her name
Yes.
is Danielle. So
Hmm.
she's asking, how will the UIC reconcile or manage the foreign influence intent on maintaining and directing corruption in the Jamaican government? We have had a history of continued destabilization.
Yeah, to be honest with you, there is a feeling, there is an appreciation among Jamaicans that there have been foreign influences in Jamaica. And yes, there have been foreign influences in Jamaica, but I think greater than the foreign influence is our leadership. other countries have been able to manage foreign relations effectively. I'll give you an example. In 1965, Singapore became an independent nation from Britain. In 1962, we became an independent nation from Britain. In 1965, Jamaica had a GDP per capita of 550 US dollars. Singapore had the same. Singapore was suffering from tremendous communist infiltration from China. It was suffering from language wars because Singapore has about 4 to 5 different language groups, and so they fight each other. They were fighting also over ethnic wars because you have the ethnic Chinese, you have the Malays, you have the Indians, and so on. They were also fighting religious wars in Singapore. So all of these things, religion, communism, language, racial, and they were poor. Singapore had less resources than Jamaica, far less, far less than Jamaica. Jamaica, on the other hand, was a more homogeneous society. Most of us were black. Most of us, all of us, spoke Patois for the most part, and we had English as our common language. Singapore had to fight to make English their common language, and so on. Now, foreign influence was also there. You had the Cold War happening in 1965 between the US and USSR. Why were they able to navigate those foreign influence and we were not able to navigate them? I'll tell you why. Our leaders decided to become polarized. They decided to fight each other over left versus right, communism versus capitalism, and so on. And they divided the nation and fought each other. Singapore, on the other hand, focused on making the enemy external. They said the enemy is external parties. Let us fight to make Singapore anti corrupt, safe, clean, and orderly. And let's make sure our children are highly educated in math and science and technology. Let's make sure that we build our human capital, build our country so that it is clean and safe from coast to coast. And let's make sure that every family has a home, every family has good nutrition, every family has good education, every family has access to quality health care. Let's make sure that is happening and focus on building our capacity to build and produce and trade. Jamaica, on the other hand, chose different issues to make a priority. So it's not the foreign influence, which is there, it's the local leadership and the system that we choose to put in place. In Singapore, you can't be a politician if you're not competent and qualified to serve. In Jamaica, all you have to do is to be able to win elections by any means necessary to be a politician. So I think it's very important for us not to worry too much about the foreign influence, but to worry about how we govern ourselves and therefore how we can then engage the foreign influences and work around them rather than making them our key impediment to progress and development.
So, excuse me. So she had, Danielle had another note. She says the difference in the international experience of Singapore and the experience of Jamaica is also racial. There is foreign interest in keeping a black country destabilized through corrupting local leaders. Question number 2. Would the UIC advocate for reparations?
Okay, so 2 questions there. So the first question is about the racial one. I I personally do not get carried away with the idea that we know racism exists. We know racism exists. We know that uh, they have sought to exploit Africa, just like they sought to exploit Spain and Russia. And the reason we had World War I and II, is because white people were killing each other and trying to exploit each other, right? This wasn't a black and white thing. Hitler killed 20 million people because he wanted to dominate the world. Mussolini, Stalin killed 50 million people. Mao caused millions of Chinese to be killed. So If we want, we can make the issue about race, or we can focus on governing ourselves very well. There are many poor countries that are not black countries, right? There's a time when China was a very poor country because they pursued communism to the extent where eventually their people were starving. And then eventually the Chinese realized, hold on a second, this idea of trying to say nobody owns anything and the state owns everything and you can't produce and trade because we own it and you have to do what we say wasn't working. And so in China, they adjusted their system to start bringing in a little bit of what they so-called call capitalism. It's not capitalism, it's just a bit of free trade, right? They brought in some of that. So it's a matter of how we govern ourselves. If we keep looking at ourselves as being disadvantaged because of our color, we will not focus on the things we need to do to fix our country. What we need is good governance. Whether we're black or white or pink, we need to govern ourselves very well. We also need to protect ourselves. The Africans failed to protect themselves. They failed to make sure that they had the guns they needed, that they had the system they needed, that they had the armies they needed. And so others came in and trick them and take away their assets and take away their rights. We must learn from history and pursue it.
It's
On
like,
the question, sorry?
before we get to question two, so it's
Yes,
similar to Black Wall Street in the US, because
yes,
Black Wall Street, they had banks, they had businesses, but what they
yes.
didn't have was
Was a
security. They
militia.
didn't have
Yeah,
guns. They had no way of protecting themselves. And
yes,
Jamaica needs to efficiently protect itself from um, boots on the ground,
yes.
traditional war, protect ourselves from cyber war, protect
Mhm.
ourselves from even bio warfare. So Jamaica has to
Absolutely.
position itself to protect itself from all these things, and we have to also align ourselves with other like-minded nations. So the more
Absolutely.
nations more like-minded nations we align with, it's the better protected we are economically as well as in regards to safety.
Absolutely. If you notice in Singapore, they invest heavily in military might, believe it or not. Singapore, by the way, just to put it in context, Singapore has approximately 5 million people and they're the size of St. Thomas.
Mhm.
So it's a very small country physically, and it's a country that's almost two times the size of Jamaica in terms of population. But yet still, they have a very solid military. Every young person in Singapore serves in the army before they go into the private sector. That's their
And,
policy. That's the
and
approach that they follow. Yeah.
and they also have underground bunkers all over the country. So if there is
Yes.
ever war from above or bio
Yeah.
warfare, they pull all their citizenship and they pull them all underground. Everybody's
Yes.
so
And they
Singapore
also,
is
yeah.
prepared for anything.
Anything. And so they have been a very intelligent nation, and that's where I want us to bring Jamaica to stop being just so emotional and start being intelligent, having data driven, scientific driven, analytically driven decision making. Now, on the issue of reparation, I'm not a fan of reparation. I'll tell you why. I think it distracts us. It makes us weak. Let's look at slavery for what it is. It's a war, right? Slavery is a war, and we lost the war. When you lose the war, what do you do? Do you beg your victors to give you compensation when you lose the war? Or do you spend your energy and time figuring out how to make sure you never lose again? How to protect yourself from your enemies? So we have wasted many years, our politicians have wasted tons of our time planting in our minds to focus on begging our captors, begging our victors, begging our enemies for reparation. And we've also built up a great appetite for grants and aids and begging, as opposed to telling ourselves that no, we as a country must take responsibility for ourselves. We must build up our country. We must build systems, be more efficient, be more effective, be more economically sound, and become a solid country. Now, Singapore could have focused on reparation. They were overrun by Japan, terribly overrun by Japan, massacred, raped, beaten, killed. They were first an outpost of England. So they were a colony of England. What did they do? Singapore focused on making themselves a formidable force in society, as opposed to becoming a begging agent of society. It's time for us in Jamaica to stop being a begging agent, a dependency state, to becoming a powerful, thinking, planning, organizing, designing, responsive state that
So
understand the world around us and build solutions that create a buffer between us and the rest of the world, that empowers our people to be able to stand head and shoulder with any other nation
mhm.
from within Jamaica, not by running away from Jamaica. Yes, Devon.
Yeah, so Jamaica has been past prime ministers of Jamaica have been quote unquote demanding compensation as a result of slavery and colonialism. But we have to understand that Jamaica is not in any position right now to demand anything from our existing slave. Believe it or not, they are still our slave masters or existing slave masters, the Queen of England and the Spanish, etc. Right? We are not in a position of strength, of economic power, of military might to demand from our existing our when the UIC when Jamaica becomes a republic, it will be our past slave masters. So what we need to do right now is to focus on what is now. Focus on getting Jamaica to that stage. And one of the ways that the UIC will be getting us to that stage is something that is similar to reparations. For years and years and years, the government of Jamaica has robbed Jamaicans the right to life, liberty, and property. And they did that by creating an unsecure nation. They did that by giving us poor education. They did that by forcing illegal taxes on us, property taxes, duties. Those things should not be within our society. If we buy something, we should own it. Our house should be ours, which is why the
Yeah.
UIC has created the 10% GCT program, which Mr. Patterson has named Work Fair, where every single Jamaican, every single child definitely will have proper housing and will have proper education, because the government of Jamaica needs to give back what it took from us. And after the government of Jamaica gives back and we're able to fuel individual freedom, we're able to fuel individual rights, fuel economic power in Jamaica, then we can stand on our 2 feet and say to the mighty Britain and say to the mighty Spain, hey, this is Jamaica and you owe us. Then we can speak to them when the time is necessary. But right now, we cannot. We don't have the resources. We don't have the manpower. And we have a corrupt system where even if we did get reparations, the money is going in whose pocket?
Absolutely.
Whose pocket is the money going into?
Yes, yeah, yeah. If we got reparation money, all we're doing is enriching the politicians even more. They will take this money, and you will see bigger houses, bigger walls, nice chandeliers. They will import more foreign goods and further devalue our currency. So we need to move away from this. Just to elaborate on Devon's point about the UIC's internal reparation program, if you will, which we call workfare. What workfare means is that we are going to make sure that no family in Jamaica is left behind and no child is without quality education. We're dead set on building our human capital. We must make our children bright, right? They have the capacity, but you can't have incompetent teachers teaching our children. So we have to fix that problem. We need to make sure that we have quality teachers in our schools, quality schools teaching our children. We need to make sure every child has access to quality education. That's a must. And we need to fix the ghettos. We need to get rid of the ghettos and make sure families have decent homes. But we're also going to do this in a way that is sustainable by moving to a model of homes that are high rise buildings and preserve as much of our agricultural land as possible to feed the nation. So the UIC is on a path to make sure Jamaica is water secure, food secure, and energy secure. That's key. And at the same time, we want to protect the family, give the family the foundation it needs to be able to become productive. And we're not going to sell the idea of free education, free healthcare, or anything like that. What we're going to sell is the idea of the rights of children must be protected and parents must be a part of the solution. But we know the parents are different types. So some parents can pay a little, and some parents can pay nothing. So those who can't pay, we're going to supplement them, not just with money, but with work. We want to get every able bodied Jamaican who has a child that we're going to use the 10% GCT to make sure they get the education. We want those parents to be gainfully employed. So we're going to have a workfare program that gets them involved in the productive sector, even if it is just for them to learn the skills first of all, so that they have the skills to earn and then they're able to pay back into the system so that they're not freeloading of other hardworking Jamaicans. We want all citizens, all Jamaicans, to be a part of paying for the building of Jamaica. That's why we don't talk about people not paying taxes. Everybody must pay taxes. But we want to set the taxes at a simple rate, 10% across the board. It's a flat tax of 10% on your income from all sources. And this will go towards making sure we have a safe Jamaica, a clean Jamaica, an orderly Jamaica. Now, watch what happened with this. If you have a Jamaica like that, business is going to go through the roof. We're going to create jobs like crazy. Not the government creating the jobs, but the government creating the conditions that spurs job. Because now a little 25-year-old who wants to try something, wants to invent something, can now do so with safety and access to capital. Because now capital will flow more freely. Because we're introducing free banking, where it means you're going to have more banks, you're going to have smaller banks, you're going to have regional banks, you're going to have banks in every nook and cranny that can support the needs of the small investor, the small entrepreneur, the small business, the micro enterprise, and we're going to build the economy, therefore, from the ground up. Devon.
Mm-hmm. And energy security is an important part of that as well. As you, many of you know, like my background is energy engineering, and this is something I haven't even told you yet, Joseph. So I'm gonna just let people know what's going on in my mind. So looking at the energy situation in Jamaica, where there are you have single buyer and single payer. So what you have is the Jamaica Public Service having full monopoly over the transmission and distribution of energy to the end client. And then we
Yes.
have duopoly. I'm biting my tongue here, right? So then we have multiple companies engaged in the generation and supply of energy to the Jamaica Public Service. So what I want to do, and what no doubt, because my vision is aligned to the UIC's vision of liberating the Jamaica's energy sector, agriculture sector, etc. What I want to do is to the monopolies on multiple companies. And not, when I say multiple companies, I don't mean the friends of politicians, and I don't mean the friends of these big
Yes.
energy companies. I mean that Jamaicans, you can have a solar panel system on your roof, Joseph, and then you can
Yes.
sell energy through the grid to your neighbor. And I'm not
Hmm.
talking about those little cheap stuff that they have right now with the cheap metering. I'm talking
Yeah.
about you selling energy and getting 100% of the profit.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. You should be able to buy a piece of land and set up some windmills, set up your generators, set up your solar farm, and sell energy directly to the end client. So the end client should be able to subscribe to your service. So it's not like the system that we have now where you sell your power directly to JPS and then JPS sells it to the customer. The
Hmm.
customer in Portmore should say, oh, Joseph has a real nice farm out there, and his supply of energy is very affordable and it's clean. He has solar, he has wind. The other guy has diesel, he has natural gas. And I think
Hmm.
Joseph's system is safer and it's more affordable. I am going to buy energy from Joseph. That's the type of system that I want to create in Jamaica. It's called wholesale resale energy distribution. That's what it's called. And Singapore,
I have a better name for it, Devon.
what do you want to call it?
It's called free market.
Yes. Yeah. He's gonna.
I mean,
Yeah.
if I know Jamaicans have been misled
Mhm.
and told all kind of things that cause them to believe that the solutions to most problem is more government. It's not more government. It's good government that allows the market to function properly and then protect the citizens. Focus now on protecting the rights of citizens. So, for example, consumer protection, all right? A proper police force or service, rather, a proper justice system that is accessible to Jamaicans regardless of their levels of income. So these are the things we must get government out of the business of creating economic monopolies. Right now, they have created an energy monopoly. They created agricultural monopolies. That's why our agricultural sector is dead. That's why sugar is dead. They created monopolies. They protected those monopolies when they're being inefficient and ineffective, and they pass on the cost to the Jamaican people. That's why we've lost banana. That's why we've lost sugar. That's why we have wasted our lands on bauxite when that was not the best use of our environment. So the UIC is going to create a government that actually focuses on protecting the citizens while freeing up the economic environment for even the poorest person to become wealthy. Right? We don't want what we have now. We need connections. You need political approval. You need to go and see your MP. You need to go and get special approval from the minister. All of that must be done. I have lived in Canada for a number of years, and in all my entire life of building business there, not once have I ever had to go to a minister or a politician for any special favors to be able to grow my business and to be able to come back to Jamaica because I have been successful at doing so. We need to get rid of this system. We need to make Jamaica a place where every single citizen can aspire to achieve their highest potential and not run into a roadblock created by politicians or politics.
Okay. So Joseph, I got to leave because I have a real estate agent upstairs that's been
No
waiting for me
problem.
for how long?
Well, my plan was to be off in 1 hour from the
Yeah.
time we started, but let's just thank all of our friends on Facebook, Twitter, uh,
YouTube.
um, Clubhouse, YouTube.
Mhm.
What else? Where else are they?
So that's it. We're gonna be on
Okay,
Instagram as soon as we get a hang of it. And
no problem.
I see our friend here from Clubhouse. She's holding a Jamaica Government Civics 101 in Clubhouse. So maybe
Yes.
we go live on this platform to stream this through our social media pages to see what's going on. Right? And we can engage with them through Clubhouse.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely. Well, thank you, Sophia Murray. Thank you, Sister Janet. Thank you, Michibu. Thanks, Kevin. All of you out there. I can't see you all, but thank you so much for writing in, contributing. I'm glad that you love the vision, Sophia. Now, Devon, do you have a picture of the UIC logo? at hand? No.
Right
If
now, no,
anybody,
I don't have.
if anybody have seen our logo, you'll notice it's the outline of Jamaica, and it brings two hands coming together to shake hands and to help each other. We, my friends, are stronger together. We have to unite in order to bring the change we need for Jamaica. So all of us need to spread the word about the UIC. All of us need to join the UIC, bring our friends and families to join the UIC, donate to the movement, and let us pull together to unite Jamaica, to liberate Jamaica, and then to build a great and powerful Jamaica that is energy secure, food secure, water secure, and have a good system of national security and a system that protects each and every family. Thank you very much. God bless you all until we meet again. Take care.
Bye, everyone.